G'day, today I'll be showing you how to cook a stew in a camp oven on a fire. So the first thing we've got to do is just light the fire and let it burn down to coals. So I'll just light that now. Rightio, now that the fire is lit, all that's left to do is build it up. Crack a cold one. And wait for it to burn down to coals. Alright, now the fire's burning down quite nicely, it's time to start cooking our stew. Rightio, so in this stew we've got leek, potato, carrot, mushroom, cabbage, and of course, meat. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to dump those right in there because they're pre-cut. And the good part about this is my goats are going to eat any food stuff that I leave. That'll do. Now I'm not going to use a whole quarter of a cabbage, but if we just sort of slice it in there like that, look at that. That's plenty. I'll just put that aside in case I decide I want more. So I'll start cutting spuds up. Whoops, lost a spud. That's alright, landed on the grass. And it doesn't matter if they cut up roughly, because it all tastes the same in the end stew. And I buy the pre-washed ones because I'm lazy and I like to be able to just throw them in the pot easy. There we go. Just cutting up my carrot. I don't bother peeling it. And like I said before, any of these little ends and bits I can just leave here because the goat will be along very quickly to eat them off the ground. Alright, now all of our vegetables are cut up, we'll add in our meat, and of course, no, you get a little bit for the dog tax. There you go. Good girl. No, you can't have the rest. Go on, you can't have the rest. Good girl, eh? Good girl. Alright, now one thing you got to do when you cook on a camp oven is you've got to add extra liquid. Because you can't really control the temperature in here properly, you've just got to add extra liquid, otherwise what you'll end up doing is just burning it. It doesn't really dry out. What it'll do is it'll burn out the outside and leave the inside uncooked. But it's just very unpleasant when that happens. So what I'll do is I'll stir this all around. Oh, and look, come on, okay, hey, I'll give you a little bit of a goat tax, how's that? There you go. You happy now? She's got her share, she's happy. So we've got our stock. Now to thin the stew at the end, because you've added so much stock, I just add a tin of gravy, and what that does is it thickens everything up, it adds a little bit of extra salt, and it sets the whole thing off. So I'll just turn this around now. Yeah, come on. Break them up into smaller bits, get the grass out of it. No, you've had enough. Off you go. You've had enough. Go on. Go on. Okay, she's stealing ends of carrots. That's okay. Told you they wouldn't be here for long. Alright. There we go. Take a look at that. That's a good looking stew. Now, The fire is very nearly ready. So, no, you can't have it out of the pot. So the fire is very nearly ready, and we're just going to put it on when it is. And my cleanup crew are already busy at work. Hey, good animals. You know, there's nothing quite nice as sitting out here by the creek with a nice little fire, about to cook your dinner, smashing coldies. And if I stand up, you can look down the creek and see that there's water still in it. Now in this creek, I happen to know that there's turtles. I've seen them when the rains first came. And there's baby fish in there. I don't know what kind they are, and I hope they're not just guppies. I want them to grow nice and big so I can catch them and put them in my cook pot as well. Alright, now we're ready to put the cook pot on the fire. This fire's probably still just a shade too hot, but I'm quite hungry and I'm being impatient, so I can just right on the top there. Look at that. Now what we'll do is we'll keep an eye on it over the next hour. After an hour it should be cooked. It should cook fairly quickly because we use mince as the meat. If you're using steak, you cook it a little bit slower, but mince works out just fine. I prefer mince. It's easy to work with, and I don't have to cut it, which I quite enjoy. What some people do with a camp oven is they put coals on top of it as well. But for what we're cooking today, that's actually a very bad idea, because what it'll do is it'll burn the top of the stew and the rest of it will cook nicely, but the top will be burnt. So if we just cook it from the bottom like this, it's just like a big stew pot and it cooks wonderfully. Now this is cooking nicely, but the fire's a little bit spread out, so I'm just going to use a shovel and kick the coals back in around the pot. There we go. Now that's a good camp oven. I know, because smell-o-vision hasn't been invented yet, you can't smell it, but it smells amazing. Yeah, look at that. It's cooking beautifully. There we go. The potatoes aren't quite soft yet, so the stew's not done, and it's cooking very nicely. Take a look at that. Take a look at that. That stew is cooking beautifully. The potatoes are nearly done, but they'll need just a little bit longer yet. So we'll leave it on the coals and we'll come back in another 15 minutes. Now that that's nearly ready, we'll pull the lid off it, put it on the ground over here, and I've got a tub of gravy powder. What that'll do is that'll soak up a lot of liquid, and that'll make the stew go a lot thicker and add a lot of flavour to it. So if we just turn that in there, look at that. Check out that little bit of stew there. So we'll chuck the lid back on it. Make sure it's on there, and we'll leave it on there for another 15 minutes. Alright, let's have another look at this. Oh, look at that. That stew is done. Look at that. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to take it off the fire. Put it down there, and we're going to leave it to cool for about half an hour. And we're going to come back and have some lunch. Alrighty, now our stew's done. It's just about lunchtime. Take a look at that. Still a bit warm, but it tastes fucking good. Oh, jeez.
I think I've asked you, why don't you put tomato in your stews?
Dunno.
I think I've asked you before, have I?
No, I don't think so. I just don't think I've bought tomato.
Because when I was on the Murray River, I think it was,
No, keep going.
there's 3 or 4 drunken blokes and one chick that were camping there. And they used to make stews. And every time the stew was cooked, they'd all argue, I want a tomato. And I still remember her going off at them. You fucking immature bunch of drunken cunts. Everyone wanted a tomato.